I do love my toys. So what's happening, everybody? I just got back from Sony. I went in there to talk about the workshop coming up this weekend, and they gave me a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. So I'm taking all this stuff with me down to Queenstown for the photographers to play with and get to know, you know, people that aren't using Sony, to get to know them, try the lenses out natively without adapters so you can see how the real kind of autofocus works. So my idea was to go through all the cameras, the main ones. So I have the A73, the A7R3 and the A9, and show you guys the differences, why you might choose one over the other and all that sort of stuff. So let's just jump straight into it. Firstly, the cameras. As I said, I have the A9, the A7R3 and the A7 III. These are the three current generation cameras that a professional might choose to use. So basically the bodies are all the same pretty much, other than the A9 has this extra dial where you can change your burst rates and your focus modes here, which is quite handy so you don't have to go into the function menu. I do miss that about the A9. Other than that, the bodies are pretty much the same. They're all touchscreen. They all have a little joystick on the back. These are all the new current generation cameras. Biggest difference sensor wise, this is a new 24 megapixel sensor. Really amazing. All of these are really amazing in low light. I believe the A7 III, the cheapest one, is the best. You know, whatever, they're all really good. The difference is debatable in real world situations, but the A7 III supposedly is the best, just by a margin. So 24 megapixels, low light monster. The A7R3 now is 42 megapixels. So I use these cameras. I used to have an A9 and an R3, and I switched to two A7R3s. The A7 III is going for about 3,500 New Zealand dollars, give or take a couple hundred, depending on where you buy it. This one is 24 megapixels. It's a low light beast, and you know, it's your cheapest option for a full frame Sony current generation camera, and it's a good option. The only downsides with this one is it's not quite as tough as the others, so it doesn't have weather sealing, any proper weather sealing. It's a little bit, but doesn't have proper weather sealing, and it's built a little bit softer. So the front of it, I believe, is plastic, or the rear maybe. Half of the camera is plastic, whereas these ones are all sort of aluminium chassis and whatever. Plus side with the A7 III is it has the same autofocus system as the A9, so 700 whatever points of focus. Really amazing. These all have really amazing focus, but these two are slightly better than the A7R3. So cheapest option to get into it. Next is the A7R3. A little bit tougher than the A7 III, a little bit more expensive. These are about 5,000 New Zealand dollars at the moment, give or take again, a couple of $100. Biggest difference between these two is this one is 42 megapixels. So massive files. I run them in compressed RAW, so the file size is about 40 to 45 megabytes per image, and the difference in quality is you can't really tell. I can't really tell. Now the A9 stands out a little bit because of the sensor. Now all of these can do silent shooting, but the A9 has the stacked sensor. It's the only one of its kind at the moment, and it can shoot pretty much electronic shutter anywhere. So these ones can freak out in different lighting situations, and you can get a little bit of rolling shutter, you know, with sports or fast-paced stuff where electronic shutter might not work, so you got to use mechanical. But they both do like 10 frames a second in mechanical, so no problems there. This one can do 20 frames a second in electronic shutter, and you can use electronic shutter anywhere, so you don't have to be worried about lighting conditions or anything like that. But the A9, people misunderstand, the sensor is different. It's not the same silent shooting as these other two. So this one is fully weather sealed. It's a tank. I know I've had both of these actually soaking wet and never had a problem. I know someone that's killed an A7 III because they got it really soaking wet, but you know, it's not weather sealed from factory, so you know. But these two, I've had both of them soaking wet and never had a problem at all, and the A9 is a tank. Ethan, my second shooter, is still shooting with the A9, and it's a beast. He's had it, I know we had one shoot where he had guys jumping into a pool and the camera got completely soaked, and the A9 was fine, didn't blink, it was absolutely perfect. They all shoot dual cards, they all have dual SDs, they all have amazing battery life. So biggest difference is between them all is the sensor, and the focusing is a little bit different on the A7R3, but when I was shooting them side by side I couldn't tell the difference. This one just has 400 points, whereas this one has 700 and it's edge to edge. So other than that, I couldn't see really a difference between them. And the A7R3 obviously has better image quality than all the others, being 42 megapixels, and it's just a beast of a sensor. The A9 is going for about 7,500 New Zealand dollars at the moment, so it's quite expensive, but it's the beast, the tough one, the one that extreme photographers are going to use, and sports photographers, you know, even wedding photographers, if you really want to get the toughest, you know, best focusing camera on the market. 3 cameras, 3 price points. A7 III, about 3,500, 5,000-ish for the A7R3, and about 7,500 for the A9. Biggest difference, 24 megapixels, 42 megapixels, 24 megapixels, but with the dual stack sensor, so you can use electronic shutter anywhere, which is fantastic, especially for weddings and shooting in old freaky churches with crazy lighting. The A9 is your beast. These two you might not be able to use silent shutter in that kind of situation, but take a shot, check it, and you'll be fine. If I turn them around on the back, as you can see again, they're all pretty much identical. From the back, I don't think you can really tell them apart other than the dial sticking up on the A9. Actually, another thing to note, the A9 and the R3 do have a better viewfinder than the A7 III. Most people say you can't tell the difference unless you look at them side by side, but the A7 III does, the viewfinder is slightly lower resolution. Not a big deal, you know, look at it through the viewfinder for yourself and see how you feel about it. So that's the cameras. Now we'll go through some of these lenses that they gave me, and I'll explain about the different ratings of lens, because there's G and a G Master and the Sony Zeiss. There's quite a few different ones that are similar to like an L series and a non-L series lens, etc. The main 2 lenses with the main 3 lenses with Sony. If you have a look at this 55mm, this is a 55mm. I've already done a review on it. It's a Sony Zeiss lens. Okay, Sony Zeiss lens. Now the next one up you have is this, like this 24-105. This is a G lens, so this is a kind of like the cheaper L series glass, I guess. Still really high quality, but not a G Master like these 3 are. So this is a 24-105 f4 lens. This has stabilization and all that sort of stuff, and you know, great lens. G lenses are really good quality, not quite at the same standard as the G Master lenses. So the G Master lenses would be your full-on L series glass, like the 1635 2.8, the 2470 2.8, and the 70 to 200 2.8. Same as my G Master 85. So this is my one. This is the G Master 85. You see it's got the little red G. So you know it's a G Master. That's my G Master 1.4 85mm. So G Masters are the higher spec, similar to the high-end L series glass that you can buy for Canon. The G lenses are still kind of a pro lens, still weather sealed and stuff like that, but not to the same standard as the GMs. And then you get the Sony Zeiss ones, which are the older models, still making them, but they're different. So you can get the 35-1.4, which is a Sony Zeiss. You know, there's a 50-1.4 Sony Zeiss, this 55mm, there's a whole bunch of them. This one is an awesome lens, I love it. This is a 35mm 2.8, so it's a little tiny prime. You can see it's just crazy small. Downside being 2.8, but it's so small and be amazing for travel. And then the last thing I'll go over is this battery grip. I've already done it in the last video I just posted, but they gave me one as well. So this will go on any of these cameras. They all take the same battery, they all take the same grip, and the grips and accessories will work with any of the cameras. So I hope that's given you a bit of insight into the different models that you can invest in when you're switching systems or getting into a new system. Any of them are going to blow your mind. They're all really, really high quality. They all have amazing focus. They're all really good in low light. You just got to pick how much money you want to spend, really. I'm really happy with my R3s. I don't really, you know, the only thing I miss about the A9 is having that silent shooting and being able to shoot in old churches completely silently with crazy lighting and not having banding and stuff. So I do miss that, and I miss the little extra dial on it. Otherwise, I'm really stoked with my R3s and being able to shoot picture profiles. Like I'm shooting S-Log 2 at the moment on these cameras for my YouTube channel. So really happy with those. So now I just have to figure out how to get all this stuff in a case and onto the plane down to Queenstown safely, so all of you guys coming on my workshop can play with them. And I'll see you on Saturday when I start this adventure off on YouTube. Thanks for watching, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in a couple of days.